Okay, where did we stop? Okay, the three major departments of the government, you already know that. Executive, legislative, and judiciary. Executive, if executive, E as in enforcement of law. Okay, legislative, um, L as in laws or enactment of laws. Okay, J as in application of laws. So sila mo apply. Okay, if it's executive, it's enforcement. L, legislative, enactment of laws. J, application of laws. Okay, just take note of that. Okay, let's go to the separation of powers. Okay, another principle that is very much important to this current study and to the other subjects in the future. Okay, the principle of separation of powers ordains that each of the three great branches of the government has exclusive cognizance of and is supreme in matters falling within its own constitutionally allocated sphere. Okay, let's highlight this portion. The principle of separation of powers, again, ordains that each of the three great branches of government has exclusive cognizance. What do you mean by cognizance? It has its own exclusive jurisdiction or exclusive duties of and is supreme in its matters. What do you mean by supreme? They are supreme in matters that are falling within its own constitutionally allocated sphere. Okay. Number one, the principle of separation of power tells us that each department of government has an exclusive jurisdiction or exclusive duty. So, as we as we um, as we mentioned, ang executive is in charge of the enactment of laws. Enforcement of laws. Legislative is in charge of enactment of laws. Judiciary is in charge of application of law. So, that is really clearly defined by the Constitution class. Klaro gyud na, and the definition has never been changed ever since. Mao gyud na siya. Okay? So, naana na siya exclusive cognizance or duty. And each department sa ilahang duty, they are supreme in matters about the exclusive the ex, executive department is exclusive in matters that are again, the executive department is supreme in matters that is falling within the duty of enforcing the law. Kay siya man ang assign anak class. So, the executive department and all the agencies under it, including the president, kinsay mo decide, it is the executive department. Sila ang muduma anak class because they are supreme in matters falling within their own constitutionally allocated sphere. In the same way, ang legislative department is also supreme in matters about the enactment of laws. In the same way, Judiciary Department or the Supreme Court and all their other regular courts falling below it or under it is also supreme in matters falling within or about the application of the laws. So take note of the separation of powers. So when we say separation class, klaro no, ang each house, I always, my political law teacher pag college always gave us an illustration of tulo ka circles class, executive, legislative, and judiciary. Then the separation of powers really inyo lang illustrate class nga di na sila magtapo. Okay? Di sila magtapo when we just talk about separation of powers. Okay? Kaya naman siya own circle. Naman siya own constitutionally allocated sphere. And what is the purpose of this doctrine? The doctrine of separation of powers is intended to prevent a concentration of authority in one person or group of persons that might lead to an irreversible error or abuse in its exercise to the detriment of our republican institutions. Again, the doctrine of separation of powers is intended to prevent a concentration of authority in one person or a group of persons that might lead to an irreversible error or abuse in its exercise to the detriment of our republican institution. Okay, so what is the purpose, class? In simpler terms, gihimo ang principle of separation of powers para malikayan ang situation nga ang tanang power and authority will go to one person or to a group of person that might lead nga when there is abuse of power or authority, there is an irreversible error or harm that will be done to the republic or the people in general. That is the purpose. That is the intention of the doctrine, to prevent concentration of authority. Because, again, each department has its own assigned duty or assigned function. Okay, so when was this principle not applied? And it led to an irreversible error. This was actually heavily violated during the martial law of President Marcos, because during that time, President Marcos he was the president, so he belonged to the executive department and has executive power. He was also Congress at the same time. He belonged also to the legislative department, and he was also like functioning like a court, no? The judicial department. So ang tulo ka authority and tulo ka powers naa gidto sa iyaha. He was the sole authority. All the authority was concentrated on him. And what did it lead to? An irreversible error or harm to those who were killed during the martial law, and to all the lives lost, and to all families broken because of that event, and very unfortunate event. Okay, so that is why this is taken very seriously by our Supreme Court, and our government officials is taken very seriously. So, Jose P. Laurel once said, the conduct of the various agencies of the government under the doctrine of separation power is not independence, but interdependence. So, dili daw kanya-kanya, class. Dili siya the common Boholano phrase that ija-ija, aho-aho does not apply to the principle of separation of powers. Even though they have their own sphere or they have their own assigned function, it does not says nga independent ang each department, but instead it must be interdependent. What do you mean by interdependent? They are interdependent with each other. So they still need to help one another. So because they are interdependent.